Now, you're welcome along. So, sort of an interesting one for you. Last year in men's Gaelic football, there was a revolution. And in what was kind of novel, it was all very public and upfront. There was the Congress in Newry in February of 24, and Jarlath Byrne's new president at the time announced he was creating the FRC with Jim Gavin at the helm. And the revolution was literally televised. In October, you'll remember we had those sandbox exhibition games on live TV. There were presentations that night to the media, and all over the media, to be honest. FRC members even had nice FRC gilets. So it was all very official and upfront. And as we know, it was a resounding success. And then as the summer of 2025 unfolded, you suspect ladies football looked on with their old rules and felt very forgotten. But now it seems that ladies football is having its own revolution. Not that you would know much about it. Not only is it not being televised, it is practically a secret. This is sort of a no information for the public approach. But it is happening away from the public glare. And to tell us more, happy to say Nadine Doherty of the Sunday Independent and, of course, former Donegal captain is with us in studio. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Joe, for having me.
So, last year you couldn't move but for FRC people talking, Jarlath Byrne's talking, it was all public, it was up front. And this, on the LGFA's part, is almost completely the opposite approach. In the guise of all other revolutions, generally social media is where people first hear about it these days. So, new rule changes started circling a little bit on social media in the last couple of weeks because they were sent out to the county boards.
Even to find that out, I had to text a lot of people, send a lot of emails for confirmation on that. And I'm laughing, you're saying, I'll tell you more. I'm not sure how much more I'll be able to give you. But yes, a PDF of the new rule changes arrived in the inbox of, they were circulating on social media on Tuesday evening, so I'm presuming it was Tuesday morning. Went to county boards and obviously then went to managers shortly after that. I mean, I'd say there were a couple of managers who didn't get that PDF until the end of the week, perhaps, depending on how on the ball your county board is. But they're out, Joe, and it's brilliant. You know, and I wanna highlight that before I say anything further. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I sat here with you at the end of July last year. We spoke about possible rule changes, and I said that I would be absolutely shocked if there was any move on rule changes this year for next season. So full credit there. But I suppose the scantness of the information that's come out, I tried very early on to find out who's on the committee. No comment. I did get confirmation that Micheál Naughton, the previous president of the LGFA, was heading it up. That's the only information I was given, and was told that there'd be further information further down the line. Still waiting on that. Then there were rumours circulating that McBohan was involved, which absolutely brilliant. Then there were details of an in-house game in DCU, I think mid-November, maybe the 13th of November. That crept out, I think, from some players maybe who were super excited, as you would be, about trialling these new rules. It was all behind closed doors, but the only information that we got from that was McBohan was there, absolutely, with a lot of other LGFA officials. I'm presuming a lot of referees, let's be honest, because I feel this probably is the only sandbox game essentially that has taken place so far, because we would have heard whispers if there were others. And that essentially has been it. Over the last 6 weeks.
So what happens, for instance, when like you ring your contact in the LGFA? And when I say your contact, I don't mean like your secret.
No, it's
like
not
the PRO or the person
who
deals with media queries, and you sort of say, are you guys in the midst of like a kind of once in a generation change here? Or any info? What's the response?
Very, very courteous. It's the PR. You know, the person in charge of PR. There'll be statements further down the line.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, the LGFA, that is the way they roll in terms of communications. It's always through a big statement, through the media, through, social media, through direct media channels. It's a full statement with no comment, essentially. And I suppose it's the lack of being open to question. That's that's what I feel. Perhaps that's why they take that route. Here's our statement. That's it.
So this is almost how they've always done public
Always,
relations. And
absolutely.
public relations is generally when something's gone wrong. So they've almost taken that way of dealing with media issues and copy and pasted it onto what is actually a good news story and an exciting news story and said, there'll be a statement.
That's it. Okay. And you know, and in fairness to the LGFA, there have been very few times where, you know, they've had a bad PR, let's say, and they've had to release a statement. You have to give them that. But especially with this one, I just feel, and I wrote it at the weekend, you know, they should be having a party on the outside, because this is such an opportunity. I mean, to do what they've done in such a short period of time, and we'll get into it, but I think this is going to be massively successful. To do what they've done in such a short space of time, to have somebody like Mick Bohan involved unofficially, allegedly, I really say, and having, you know, a new CEO. I mean, what a week they've had, and nobody is coming out to praise them. Because they deserve a huge amount of praise.
I had sort of heard this was maybe in the offing, and it was only when I read your piece over the weekend I was like, "Oh, it's this
happened." Yeah.
I was like, have I missed? Is this me? Like am I not looking at? I need to reevaluate how I'm following the news. But then I realised it's sort of not, because around this time last year it was the talk of the GAA world, and it did strike. I'm sure a lot of people, yourself included, this year as an opportunity to go to RTE and say, we're going to have sandbox games. Mick Bones, actually, they had Jim Gavin. We got our own multi-All-Ireland winning Dublin manager. He'll be there for interviews, and it'll be a great almost discussion point for the game, and a bit of debate and excitement, etc. So kind of free, easy marketing.
Free, easy marketing.
Kids in free for the sandbox games.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Set up the league, big exposure for the league, but it's a PDF in pink and purple.
Leaked on social media.
Essentially leaked, yeah. Because my phone blew up on Tuesday night. It was like everybody kept sending it to me. And then, as I said, I had to, trek back and find out where it came from. But yeah, look, just a massive opportunity missed.
And we won't dwell on this overly, because I suppose
it's a positive. It is positive. It's happening.
Yeah, the substantive point are the rule changes, which we'll discuss. But I suppose it's doubly confusing maybe when just a year prior you've seen a pretty good template as to how to handle the PR and almost like the success story. It wasn't like this is uncharted territory. Oh my God, we're attempting to touch the rules, the sacred rules of our sport. This could be dicey. Actually, 2024 showed the way to do it is open and
absolutely
and all that. So it's kind of doubly confusing that they would have said, let's button this right down, say nothing.
Is it a case that there's a fear that it's not going to be successful? Is that why attention isn't going to be drawn? It shouldn't be the case. And I don't think it's the case, because they have taken that template of the men's game. We'll go through the rules that they've taken, and that's been massively successful. So I just can't see how or why they wouldn't decide to really, really go public with it. I don't understand it. I don't. And that's where I'm coming on it. And you look at it last week, I wrote a piece on it. Marie Crowe on Inside Sport had Gemma Begley and Hannah Turrell discussing it, Gemma of the GPA and obviously Hannah Player of the Year. And that's kind of been it, Joe, and ourselves now. Yeah. Three media, three media areas, and then how many more have we missed?
To be fair to the rest of the media, it's because it's top secret.
That's it. Oh no, that's it. It's not. It's not a case that the media haven't. I mean, the media didn't even get an official statement that these rules are coming in.
Yeah. So in terms of official statements, say from the LGFA, away from what's leaked on Twitter and what people are kind of whispering, there hasn't been really an LGFA statement to say
no.
This is happening.
No, and if there has been, I've missed it.
Right, okay.
The only one that I saw this week was the appointment of Lynn Savage as the new CEO.
Yeah.
There was nothing about the rules.
Okay. So we have no idea. There's a sense Mick Bohan may be involved, but, in the way that we knew who was on the FRC.
Exactly.
We've no idea who's...
No, Mick Bohan unofficially, and Micheál Nachton, as I said, the past president, is heading it up. And I don't.
But you do think there is some kind of group?
Oh, there absolutely is. In the PDF, it says the working group.
Okay.
So there is definitely a working group there. I'm sure it's very similar to the men's. You'll have a lot of referees. You'll have a lot of LGFA officials, past and present.
They can't reveal themselves.
They can't reveal.
They can't even tell their spouses.
No, they can't. It's all top secret. But
I
spoke to somebody who was involved in the men's from beginning to end, and he gave me so much detail, and it was just so interesting how each step, how they worked forward, they worked backwards. It was constant communication, the sandbox games. It just sounded, it was so interesting.
Yeah.
And that person and plenty of people have gone out in the media and told that story. So yeah, I just...
Strange, because we had Jim Gavin in studio. We had James Horan on. James does a podcast for a rival newspaper, but with his FRC hat, I'll talk to everyone. So it's very, very different.
And I mean, Mick Bohan, who better to have in front of the media? I mean,
yes.
And Mick, it's funny. It's like a full circle moment with Mick. For a while there, he was the thorn in the side of the LGFA hierarchy about the rules, and rightly so. For years. Yeah. He argued publicly about the tackle, about the lack of physical contact, and various other things. And here he is now, and definitely the right person for the job. And here he is changing ladies' football for the better, I feel. So we just love to talk to him about it, I suppose.
Allegedly.
I
should mention, before we get into the rules, then our GAA podcast coverage is sponsored by AIB. They are also proud sponsors of the All-Ireland Club Championship for men's football, hurling, ladies' football and camogie. They celebrate the joy, dedication and support that lies at the heart of Gaelic games in every community and every player. Check out AIB GAA social channels for more. So secrecy aside and courtesy of the leaks, we have a good flavour of what this working group is cooking up. And a lot of these rules will be very familiar to people, adopted from the men's game. Things like the 3 players in the opposition half in, the kick-out mark in, solo and go in, penalties for delaying play, restarting or any kind of dissent, is a big part of the FRC approach last year in. There's talk of a scoring arc. Are they going to make it 40 metres as well?
They're making it 40 metres, and that's the only one that I would have loved to have seen a slight tweak. I think had they kept the arc, the 35-metre arc or 30 metres or whatever it is, I just think women's football, the range is different.
Yeah.
Now, look, after 3 games, they're going to review these. They might change that. I would just hate to see, I'd hate to see a lot of dropped balls into the keeper's hands, wild shots, because people, players probably will want to go for 2-pointers, but I just think if it was that current arc, I think it would work a little bit better. But it's great to have it in.
It's akin to, I suppose, tee shot and golf, slightly different.
That's it. Just slight tweaks.
30, 35 territory, test it out, I guess. Maybe that's what the sandbox games are doing. The alleged sandbox games. Did they even happen?
Did they? DCU definitely happened.
Indo Sport Podcast at independent.ie. Were you in the sandbox game? Email us. Tell us what happened. You made the point in your piece, which people should read as well on the website to get a full picture. The mark close to goal, the one that's kind of inside the 20-metre line from a kick outside 45 metres, interestingly, doesn't seem to be included.
Yeah, and I'm really surprised at that, because Kerry ladies play a lovely brand of football, and they play that diagonal ball, they play long ball in, and it's really brilliant to watch. And you can see that other teams are very aware of it because they drop a sweeper back. But I'm surprised again with Mick heading it up, because Dublin tried that the last few years. They'd rotate Niamh Heatherton in full forward. They'd have Hannah Turrell in full forward. They are a fan of that long crossfield ball. So for that reason, I'm surprised it's not in. I just think that one was a bit of a no-brainer, because we have reverted to men's football type around the middle. We've gone a bit lateral, and I think that would have really, really opened it up. But look, that said, everything else that's in there is going to have a massively positive impact, like the solo and go. We talk about watershed moments in sports, and I think Dublin beating Meath by that amount in this year's All-Ireland final was one of the main reasons that these rule changes have come about, because they completely exposed so many of the rules that are redundant. And a big talking point after that final was that Dublin were cynical. Let's say, for me, they weren't cynical. For me, they were clever. For me, they just exposed a rule book that's defunct. So the solo and go now, Dublin are going to have to recalibrate for sure, and they will. But I think that's going to be massive, because in women's football, Joe, I would feel like it is very much like we are kind of programmed from very young to play forward facing with their heads up, because a lot of girls and women have played with the boys. So you really have to be super hyper aware that once you get that ball, you're gone. So I just think that we're really programmed for that to work, the solo and go. I think that would be super.
And the dub cynicism presumably is stopping frees being taken.
Oh yeah, like they were really good at it though. You know, I kind of sat back and had a giggle, because I just thought,
The referee not get involved and stop them, no?
No, I know. I think their free count was up on 40 something. Maybe if I'm wrong, somebody can email in. But they were well up, and no sin bin, no yellow card. So he kind of forgot about that rule.
Okay.
And Dublin are very clever at it too. You know, it's a different person all the time in a different place, and they just listen. They I think I added up. Did they? I don't know if they got a sin bin all year. You know.
Okay.
They may have got one or two max. So they were just very good at exposing that. And I think on the day, and, you know, like performing in any big game, the referee, obviously the eyes are always on the referee in an All-Ireland final, and a ref wants to try their best to avoid sin bins and to let the game flow.
Yeah.
But the nature of the fouling, he couldn't let the game go, and he just forgot about the yellow cards.
Okay.
Not that, listen, if Dublin had 2 or 3 players off the pitch at the same time, they still would have beaten Meath comprehensively, I feel.
Yeah.
But I just think them, by Dublin winning that game in the nature that they did, I think that had a big impact on the decisions made in HQ to change things up.
Okay. But presumably under these rules, Dublin will be every bit as dominant, or likely to be.
I think so, yeah. You know, they looked very good last year. Hannah Turrell will be a loss. Hannah's retiring, obviously, but they just have a conveyor belt, Joe, and they just have that. They just have that consistency in terms of coaching. I mean, the 2 lads who came in last year, it was seamless.
Yeah.
Underage, they're not winning everything underage, but they're still bringing through enough players every year. There's always 1 or 2 little nuggets who come through, and then in 2 or 3 years' time, they're up to speed. So they're for me, they're the team to beat before a ball is kicked.
The other thing we should mention, because if there are inter-county players listening and club players, we think. I mean, again, secrecy, but we're presuming club players as well.
I presume so.
This will come to you. I mean, we don't know anything. But the other key point is something which players have talked about for a long, long time now. The leaked PDF suggests that physical contact in the tackle is going to be legalised.
Yes, and that's, again, huge credit to the LGFA. They have they've looked at, I suppose, the most problematic area of the game over the last 10 years, the tackle and the charge. So with the tackle now, previously, just to explain to anybody, I suppose, who isn't an avid fan of ladies football, previously you could only legally tackle a player if they were mid-solo or the ball was away from their body and it had to be a clean swipe away. You could not make any contact with the body. Now, that rarely happened in a game, and referees adapt it. But in this case now, you can tackle the ball, essentially. It's a tackle like in the men's game.
Go over
without the shoulder. You can go with a bit of force.
An open hand.
And get stuck in, which is brilliant.
Because some referees, I mean, you would watch, the Vicky Wall example last year jumps to mind. When it came to physical contact, some referees almost turned a blind eye to the rule book and said, let's just play as it is. And then sometimes it would be enforced as per the rule book. And it was a bit of a mess. A bit of a mess. And that lack of consistency, because it was very much... And listen, the rule book is going to be interpreted by everybody perhaps in a different way. But this is so clear now that you'd hope there is a bit of consistency. The big one, I suppose, speaking of Vicky Wall, it's the charge, which they've rebranded as preventing a collision. So previous to this, if the attacker or the player in possession was at full flow, the defender could just stand in their way, take the hit, and it would be a free out. Now,
the defending player, let's say, they can stand up the attacking player with two hands. Now, it does say that, the contact has to be, it can't be forceful. So that's a little bit open to interpretation. But you would hope that, you have to give credit to referees as well. They'll use common sense in this regard. What I like about that, though, is it puts a bit of onus on the attacking player as well, Joe, to improve their footwork. Because I had this discussion one time with Caroline O'Hanlon, Armagh great. She was big time in favour of the charge rule, which I find so interesting. But then I suppose she's from a netball background. She's an all-rounder, let's say. But she did make a good point that she was like, well, the forward has to make some kind of an effort to avoid the defender. So this puts an onus on both players essentially to improve their skills. So the defender can use their body weight, they can use their power a little bit, and the attacker can sidestep and also use their own power. So look, you'd hope for the likes of Vicky Wall, because I wrote a piece on that last year too. I just feel she is hung out to dry by every referee because of her physical presence. Advantage, just a natural advantage. So that's brilliant. Yeah, they've listen, I just feel, again, let's have a party. Come on, guys. I just feel they've hit everything, really. They really have. And I'm excited for the league. I really am. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and I suppose, given that we got a good kind of road testing of these rules with the men's championship this year, there's almost you'd have a stronger sense of confidence that this is going to go very well for the ladies. So there's a plan, again, in so much as we can tell, to trial this during the National League competition in the new year. It's worth stating that we spoke in July and we were talking, that was in advance of Dublin winning, and we feared they would win well, and they did, and it wasn't the spectacle you want the final to be. But you were fairly, to be honest, just a downbeat on the season that had been, and maybe that feeling was even more acute because the men's had been so good. And Mick Bowen, who again we think is involved in this group, Alana Kanan, for her Same But Different series, spoke to him in September, and he's a kind of, and always has been, straight talking person in the game, and he said, fairly pointed things about ladies football. He said, is it as good as, like, so we're all telling ourselves it's a great, it's a great game, and like, God, it's brilliant, and times it's better than the men's even. He's like, is it? Because the attendances would suggest it's not, and the TV would suggest it's not. So are we kidding ourselves? Are we being honest about that? So the point I'm making is, ladies football, not just because of Dublin, but it needed, you felt, your average typical game that you watch, it needed a jolt. It had become very negative.
Yeah, needed a new lease of life, and hopefully this will give it that.
How negative was it, or becoming?
Oh, it was definitely in the lower divisions, Joe. It was very, very poor. I mean, you're talking park the bus stuff. Division 1, even, at senior level, it didn't really get going until the semi-finals. I was thinking coming in today, thinking of my highlights from last year, it probably was that semi-final weekend. There was nothing really before that. Yeah. I can't remember. So there you go.
A lot of one-sided games.
A lot of one-sided games. Just a lot of just uninteresting. I found myself on my phone, which I would never have done before. So it wasn't until the semi-final, and again, I suppose you have to look at that. It was the best 4 teams, and you have to look at quality, and perhaps down the line lower. That's why it's not as entertaining. But those semi-finals were brilliant. I mean, the Dublin game, Dublin-Galway, that went extra time, Carla Rose back heel, we talked about that time. But that game as a spectacle was a fantastic game of football. And then the Meath Kerry game, probably it wasn't as good a standard as the Galway-Dublin game, but it was way more, it wasn't way more exciting, but it was probably a little bit more exciting in a sense. Meath, nobody gave Meath a hope, myself included. Massive surprise. So that in itself was great. The final, I know Dublin absolutely wiped the floor with Meath, but I actually enjoyed it. That's what I was saying earlier. I just enjoy watching Dublin. Joe, they really are, like, they're saviours. And when you think about Mick, and that's what he always said to his teams, obviously they want to go out and win, but a huge ethos and culture of that group has been, and probably still is, it's to raise the profile of ladies football. And he always said to his groups, and he speaks about this openly all the time, that, he'd say to them, well, if you're not going to put on a spectacle, people aren't going to come and see you. So it comes back to that. So in a sense, we needed that jolt, absolutely. I do think this will go a long way to giving that jolt that's needed. But we still need the best players playing the game, and we always come back to this. You know, the AFL just wrapped up. We're missing, say, out of the 40 players who are there, to be honest, I'd say 30 of those players would be playing inter-county football. There's a few players like Dana Finn and different girls who are like different sports. They're basketball, and you know, they haven't played football in a long time. But it's having the best players, and it's also, you know, development in the LGFA is excellent. It absolutely is excellent. There's player pathways there, but the LGFA can't control all of the coaches at intercounty level or club level. They just, you know, you can't control that, and that's through no fault of their own. But I do think the coaching sometimes it can be questionable. It's very hard to get coaches for women's football, Joe. Like, it's really, really hard for whatever reason.
Even intercounty level.
Even inter-county level, I feel. Yeah, you know, a lot of years there you see ads up and it's December and a county team is looking for a coach, and you see in some counties, you know, the coaches that have gone in, for me personally, and maybe it's just my own opinion, I don't think they're good enough. I don't think that their hearts are in it in terms of ladies football, that perhaps ladies football is a bit of a stepping stone. You know, like, you have guys coming from maybe being a club manager, if even, and then they go straight to the top and they're a senior intercounty manager in women's football. Like, that wouldn't happen in the men's game.
No,
you know,
it's too deep.
And
are many former LGFA players who played for their county stepping in as coaches now?
Seen it, very few.
That's the big surprise, isn't it?
It is a big surprise, and funny, you know, Nora Stapleton, who's in Sport Ireland, she has a lot of data on a lot of this. A lot of it is down to having a family. It's work. It's not being able to give full commitment. And, you know, when you're in that high profile or high performance environment and you're playing in that high performance environment, like, I know from that, you wouldn't miss a training session as a player. So if you're going into coaching, you're going to have the same approach. So you'd have a lot of coaches a lot of women who may be interested, but they can't give that 100%. So they just step away completely. Yeah. So perhaps maybe it's looking at a model on teams and, you know, within management structures, that if you can give us 1 day a week or 2 days a week just to start off, then so be it. But that's difficult as well. And there's very few people who will do that. But again, speaking of pathways, you know, the LGFA have a course for former inter-county players. I think you either get your level 2 or level 3. So the pathways are there.
Okay.
But you know, it is a thing. It's male dominated, and maybe that's a factor in women not getting involved. You know, I don't know. I coached myself.
Westmeath, wasn't it?
I coached Westmeath, so I just finished playing football with Nafina in 2014. Went straight into Westmeath with Niall Williams from Westmeath, who'd coached us in Nafina, and I absolutely loved it. But oh my God, was it full on? Okay. Like, it's way more full on than playing. You know, like, we were up and down the road to Mullingar 3, maybe 4 times a week. You were planning sessions, you were meeting, it's all consuming. Yeah. Did that for 2 years.
And you're a teacher.
I'm a teacher,
as well, which, you know, is a DOS.
It's an absolute DOS, yeah. We walk out the door at 3 o'clock, like everybody says, and then our holiday. We don't plan, we don't stay in and get lessons ready at all.
Nothing.
No, nothing, absolutely not. But after that, I did Nafina. I did the club here in Dublin for a year, and again, I loved it. It was amazing. But I stepped away because of commitment.
Right.
It's so unsociable as well. Yeah. You know, it's your weekends. When you're coaching a club midweek in Dublin, it's a little bit better because it's all during the week. But yeah, it was all consuming, you know. And I suppose when you're playing, you do get more out of it. Well, I did anyway, personally.
Yeah, you do.
I think you do. So look, there are different factors, but you'd absolutely love to see more women involved. And again, coming back to Dublin and Mick Bohan, if you look back at his management teams, he always had at least one ex-Dublin player. I think this year Martina Farrell was still there with the 2 lads. Martina Farrell would have captained Dublin to a couple of Leinster championships. She played with Dublin for a long time. And
top of your head of the teams intercounty now this year, and rough guesstimate, what percentage is male, what percentage is female?
Oh, well, I'm thinking senior intercounty. Diana Hora is the only woman, I think, as manager. She's manager of Mayo this year. She took over from Liam McHale. So there's whatever that maths is.
It's striking, isn't it?
It is striking, yeah.
Like, it really is.
It is, but I'd say if you go across the board in terms of managers and, say, coaches or anything on a management team, I would say 90-10 split. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
80-20 maybe at a push, but definitely at the senior elite level. Yeah.
And the data that North Stablin's managed to attain or accumulate suggests that kids and job and whatever the dynamics are, either husband, spouses, well, I'm not looking after the kids when you go off and coach, or to be honest, maybe a mother is saying, well, I don't want to be away from my kids. Childhood is precious. This decade's very precious, so I'm not away 4 or 5 nights a week. But regardless of the dynamics there, that's family is one of the big reasons.
Yeah, family is a big reason. And there was she gave another data, another bit of data stat. It was 40% of women said that they were confident in their ability as a coach. And then another 40-something% said that they weren't confident in their ability as a coach, especially when they're in a male-dominated management structure, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of the family thing, like I have a wife, so, it's not the man-woman role. And I still have no interest in getting into management.
Just the commitment.
It's just the commitment.
Being away from your child.
And I think so. And, time is precious in that sense. And, a working day is long enough. Doing these bits as well with media. And I think everybody nowadays does something extra, Joe, on top of their job, in some form, even be at the gym. If you think about it.
You have to look after yourself.
You have to look after yourself and fitting everything in. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe the guys out there can tell us why they love being managers and coaches so much.
Well, and I suspect, to phrase this right, I suspect the expenses might be better.
I'd say so. Yeah.
And so there's that whole area as well.
Yeah.
I wonder, would the LGFA in a kind of revolutionary over the next 20 years think about, centrally funded or otherwise, can we get a pot whereby, female managers could, get a salary of sorts? It goes against the ethos, perhaps, but some kind of initiative.
Some initiative, some kind of carrot. Because, as I said, what they're doing at the minute is brilliant, but it just doesn't seem to be working.
Worth it, either, yeah.
Because as well, they do a brilliant leadership program. I did it myself, Learn to Lead, and they have 4 different strands, and one of the strands is coaching. And I've seen what they do. I mean, it's absolutely amazing, and they're paired up with mentors. And it's brilliant. And a lot of Diana Hoare, actually, the Mayo manager, she did that the same year as me, in the coaching side, and she got so much from it. And I don't know how many others who've gone through that programme are coaching at any level. Maybe a lot of people are, And again, you might find with a lot of female coaches, they coach their kids. And that's fair enough as well.
Yeah.
You don't have to go looking straight into that senior management. But just as the optics of it, I feel, Joe,
It's very striking that there's one.
Yeah. Now, there could be more, but off the top of my head, I'm going through all the Division 1 and I'm thinking just Diane's Division 2 this year at Mayo, but off the top of my head, I can't. There's Mags O'Donoghue maybe is still with Kerry, coaching. Again, the Martina Farrell with Dublin. There's a few, but not enough.
Yeah. That 40% maybe... the lacking confidence thing is all, but this is where these are treacherous conversations because you're into generalizing 3-4 billion people. But one of the generalizations, it's that old cliche that, there's a job application and the female mindset is more inclined to look at the 15 requirements and think, God, I can only do 12 of them.
Yeah.
Not for me. And the male, again, and this is not true. There are lots of men who don't believe in themselves and are insecure and doubt themselves. So I hate the way sometimes men are portrayed in this. But the cliche would be, man looks at it and says, God, I can only do 5 of them. I'll go for it though.
Yeah, I know.
And that thing is out there as well. So that's fascinating that 40% said, I'm not sure if I can.
As well, look, you also have to say and admit perhaps, or even look at it, maybe the 90% of guys who are in those roles are the best people for the job. Perhaps. But as I said, I do, having played football for such a long time with so many different women over the years, and people who you've played with and you just know they get it and they're cut out for management or coaching.
And there is the added benefit, I think, of understanding a female dressing room innately, having been part of it, because it is a different dressing room. So your people skills might be more suited or better, and you've just experienced the game. And also there is something to be said, even just from a kind of the health of the game aspect, like legendary player goes back as manager.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't love that story?
Absolutely.
You know, it's great.
Let's go, Diane, this year. Let's make it happen. Yeah, and it is. It's amazing. You know, I thought maybe Cora might have gone for that as well. I mean, Cora Thoughton's in coaching Ballinammen.
Yeah.
Winning county championships all over the place.
You're desperate for a figure like Cora to go in as an inter-county manager.
Absolutely. And I think that would be a bit of a watershed. You know, if Cora goes in and does it, then...
Bridge Stack take over Cork, and now we're cooking. You know, on we go.
Yeah, well, she has to build the house first now. She's a lot going on. But
See, a lot going on.
A lot going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, like that, if you had those big names... I do think it would make a difference. You know, you look at Cora down there and I'm thinking, God, if I was now a Sligo, because, you know, Diane obviously is in with Mayo now. If I was
Galway
chairperson of Galway, honestly, well, Galway can't get over the line, Joe.
It'd
They
be a
can't
nice
get over
coup.
the line.
Yeah.
You know, she was in with Galway hurling.
Cora
was in with Galway hurlers or footballers in the last few years. Coaching.
Hurlers.
I'm nearly sure she was in with the hurlers. Again, check that out now. Fact check me.
Okay.
But if I was a chairperson in a Connacht county, I would have her phone now.
And it would just selling those games would be so much more interesting. Like,
absolutely,
it's not the reason to do it. It's an added bonus, I suppose. But when you're looking at the landscape as a whole, it is missing those ingredients.
Absolutely. And if you're, you know, let's say Cora manages Sligo, can you imagine how many people go to the Sligo games?
Yeah.
Like Cora is box office.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
And then they play Mayo in the championship or at some stage.
Big rivalry.
You know, that sort of leads the 6-1 news. It just has that stuff.
That's it.
But then I don't know. The LGFA won't even tell us that they're.
Maybe Cora's on the.
Yeah, she probably is on the bloody committee after all that. Just before you go, then, Lynn Savage is the new CEO of the LGFA. She's going to take up the role in March 26th. You wrote in your piece on Sunday that she has been working with the LGFA since 2007, so nearly 20 years, a very modest individual.
Yeah.
I got the impression you were very happy that she's ascended to CEO. Previous tenure and what you hope Lynn continues from that era and what you hope she might do a bit differently into the future.
Yeah, she's tireless worker, Joe. She never stops. She has been over development in the LGFA for 20 years and everything else. I mean, I talked about that Learn to Lead programme that I did. She was over that. Anything, for me personally, anything amazing that has happened within the LGFA over the time that Lynn was there, she was behind it. So, and I'm absolutely delighted for her on a personal level and a professional level.
How long was Helen O'Rourke in situ?
Helen O'Rourke, 27 years. I think I wrote a piece 2 years ago, I think, and that was her 25 years. So
now, no matter, and it's nothing against Helen, that seems like not best practice. To have the same CEO for 27 years.
Yeah. Now, again, us teachers, we're running out the door at 3:00, so we're not into these big business models. But yeah, apparently so. But listen, again, with Helen, you're talking there about what she's done and what will be continued. Listen, Lynn has worked alongside Helen O'Rourke for 20 odd years. So look, she'll obviously continue a lot of the work that Helen has put in place. I also think Lynn will be maybe a little bit more front facing, perhaps. We'll see a little bit more of her. She's a real people's person. She's really, really warm. We might hear a little bit more from the LGFA through Lynn in terms of things that are going on. I'd love to see that. Yeah. I think she'll continue her focus with development. They have a strategic plan coming out now next year. Obviously, she'll oversee all of that. I think she's a great person to have in there for integration, Joe, because she's, as I said, she's great with people. She's a very strong individual as well. She's well able. I think she'll fight whatever battle she has to fight, and she'll definitely have learned a lot from Helen in that regard.
Yeah.
But I think the LGFA is in really, really good hands, and I would have loved to have heard from Lynn this week. Or, again, I just thought this week
an unveiling.
Was like, the rules, unveiling of Lynn. I know there were a few press releases, but
and even if Helen O'Rourke, if her last major decision is to have Mick Bowen and this group revolutionise the rules, that's a nice sign off for her to talk about.
Yeah,
publicly.
absolutely. Maybe send them an email.
Yeah, well, you haven't exactly you've made it seem like a fairly pointless task. We will.
No, do.
Okay.
But yeah, just to finish up with Lynn, wishing her all the best. And as I said, she's a brilliant professional. She will dedicate every breath to the LGFA. And I think everybody in the LGFA can be very comfortable and confident that everything Lynn does will be in the best interest of the members and the players in particular. Lynn is a real, pro player attitude as well. She's fantastic.
Okay. Just as a very, very, very last point, you mentioned their integration. Are you hearing much from the LGFA side about like how it's going, the conversations?
No, and in fairness to the LGFA, it seems with that steering committee, whatever is released, it's a press release and nobody jumps the gun.
Yeah.
But
off the record, they're not kind of.
No, there doesn't seem to be. But I've always been of the opinion, I've been confident that they will make whatever they're meant to make happen, they'll make happen. Now then you're reading articles whereby the Kildare women's county final, the girls were making their speech and the lights were switched off in Newbridge. You hear things like that and you think, we have a lot longer to go than we think. But in terms of the committee and the steering group there, no, I think they're on board and they're on that timeline.
Okay.
And it's exciting. It is exciting as well. You look at next year, you have the rules, you have a new CEO, you have integration down the line. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm upbeat.
Okay, good.
Yes, because I wasn't in July, but I am.
No, you weren't in July.
Maybe you just got me in a bad.
No, you're like, how's the season been? Because you watch every game, you're on it.
Yeah.
Funny, when you talk of integration on the 40-metre arc, there could be just a practical consideration of, I'm not drawing 2 arcs.
Yeah, possibly. Maybe they have insight from the steering committee that was going to happen.
No way. Crow Park, 2 lines.
Yeah. Those grinds.
And club as well.
That's it, you see. So perhaps.
The wrinkles. Nadine Doherty, thanks so much.
Thank you, Joe.